Hello there, and welcome to Thank the Maker, a podcast about heroes, princesses, scoundrels, hokey religions, ancient weapons, and all things Star Wars. I'm Adam Russell.
Oh, hey, Adam. This is Nick. I'm in Las Vegas. Can you tell because of the magazine?
I can't read, so I just looked at, there was a picture.
I can't read either.
Wow, that is really something. Hey, it's Mike Forster. Adam, we got to spend some time together this weekend. A lovely time.
Jealous.
It was a hoot. It wasn't long enough, but it was a good hang, nonetheless.
Let's do a quick recap of what exactly we all did. Nick is currently in Las Vegas to see the Killers again.
I saw them last Wednesday, and it was so good that I said I need to go back and get closer. So I'm doing that tomorrow.
Okay, so fill us in on.
Don't get killed.
The Killers.
By the Killers.
The Killers are. This is a new album.
No, it's the 20th anniversary of their first record. So they're from here, and they're doing a residency at Caesar's Palace. And
they're from
do
Vegas?
yourself, yeah.
Weird.
Do yourself a favor and Google their stage production for this residency, because literally that's about 90% of why I'm going back, because it looked so damn cool that I'm like, I need to get closer to that. And they're one of my favorite bands. So yes.
Sure.
Damn.
This tracks. Well, speaking of stage production, the Eau Claire Music Festival,
Reverb.
The Reverb Music Festival was a great time without all the lights and sounds of high-end production. But we had a good time. We let's see who I saw Amber Lynn for the first time, which is a tragedy considering how long I have listened to them, but it was just they've always been one of those bands that's either opened up for someone that I wasn't able to make it down, or we were just doing this around the country and we did not connect. So I'm glad I was able to see them finally. Amazing show. Maddie Mullen's new singer, very cool, and get to spend some time with Dion. I brought him a Roosevelt shirt. He was he called his wife.
That's nice.
On FaceTime and was like, "You won't believe what Mike gave me." And she was like, "Who is Mike?" He was like, "Oh, okay, sure." I was like, "Hi, Dion's wife."
That's amazing. Let's start the story over. Who's Mike?
Right, exactly, right. So, yeah, it was good. So he was very excited about that, and then got to hang with Ryan Key and a bunch of other friends. So it was a great show, very fun.
And dude, we found at the liquor store where we did a liquor run because we didn't have any on the rider there at the show for whatever reason. So we went and got hard alcohol and all that kind of stuff. And we found the tequila bottle. We found the tequila that's in The Mandalorian season 3 when Grief gives Mando that bottle of whatever from Coruscant. Yeah, we got a bottle of that.
That's amazing.
Ryan Key will maybe Venmo me the money for that soon. We'll find out.
Sure. Let's put it in, and I believe that is all supposed to go in the yellow card tab. So,
yep. Let's
hold him to it. Other exciting things, of course, Ryan and Yellow Card getting on the Punk Goes Disney, essentially, is what this is.
Yes.
Which is super cool. So we're excited for him. He's got a bunch of stuff going on right now. But also, Adam and I are having breakfast in Eau Claire at, what was the name of that place? It had surprise vegan options.
Yeah, I don't remember. Something cool.
Yeah, it was a very cool place. And as we were walking out, I hope whoever gave us a shout out as we were walking out said, "Love the podcast." You're listening, because that was awesome to see. And we met a weird amount of Star Wars fans in Eau Claire, Wisconsin. Like 4 or 5 people seeing our Mosh Isley shirts and being like, "So what'd you guys think of the Acolyte?" I was like, "Well, listen to the podcast."
Yes. So there was a woman giving like wine taste test or samples,
Yep.
And I guess saw my Roosevelt's hoodie. And she had to be like in her 50s probably, right?
Yeah. Yep.
And said, "Oh, Star Wars, what'd you think of the Acolyte?" When I have a Star Wars shirt on and I have someone say, "Oh, what did you think of so and so?" or "Oh, you like Star Wars?" I expect like
big Star Wars fan, huh?
So like Darth Jar Jar, is that real?
Sure.
But instead the Acolyte, which was really interesting. So that brings us to the topic of this episode, which is not a happy topic. But there was a report that came out yesterday via Deadline website, deadline.com. I saw it first on Nerdist because this immediately was recycled by everyone.
Sure.
I might as well just read the first paragraph of this exclusive, all caps. The story of the Acolyte will not continue, with Lucasfilm opting not to proceed with the second season of the Star Wars offshoot starring Amanda Stenberg. Sources tell Deadline. It's interesting that is what the story says, given the fact that the headline is "The Acolyte Canceled." No season 2 for Disney Plus's Star Wars series. What do we get into first? My annoyance with clickbait headlines and bullshit fake journalism, or the subject of how and why we got to this place where we're not going to get another season of The Acolyte?
Well, it would be a refresher, basically, of clickbait headlines. It's the internet is evil. It works off negativity, like everyone does it. One of my favorite, like political dudes, he totally plays the game with clickbait, headlines because he's got to get views. He's an independent YouTube journalist, So I'm like, every headline he has is so dramatic, and then you watch the video and it's like, oh, that's news. Okay.
Yeah.
So it's just, that's the way the internet seems to be working.
Yeah. The tough part for me is, like, I see this stuff all the time, especially with science journalism, because, I'm a big science head and I listen to some podcasts. Skeptic's Guide to the Universe is one of my favorite. And they're always talking about, actually, the episode I listened to today, they were talking about framing and how it really matters. And journalism historically has, there's sort of like, I don't know what they call it. There was sort of like a code, like almost like an oath. There was like not like a do no harm kind of thing, but it was like, true journalism is just reporting the facts that happen, an unbiased, delivery of the facts to the people. And anything beyond that was an op-ed.
Sure.
But at some point, that all changed. And it gets really tough with politics, with science, all this kind of stuff. And in the case of fandoms like this, it just really stirs the pot when you do shit like this. And you say something's canceled. When they say in the first paragraph, Lucasfilm opting not to proceed with a second season. So my issue with this wording, I made an analogy when we were talking about this to what it's like to be in a band and sign a record deal or something, right? It seems like, if I hear canceled, I think, a show's in the middle of a season and all of a sudden it's just done and they have to write a new ending and they end, 7 episodes early or something. Right. Back in the day when it was 22 episodes a season, it was, this stuff would happen. They'd be right in the middle. All of a sudden, boom, it's gone.
Right.
Or, a network orders 3 seasons worth of episodes and they cut it off after 1.
Well, let's look at it the same way that, like, Marvel canceled the Kang Dynasty because Jonathan Mayers got in a bunch of trouble, but they're choosing to not pursue Thor 5. And there is a difference between that, because that dramatically, what happened for them to cancel that dramatically had to alter the course of where they were going.
Mm-hmm.
Them not choosing to pursue season 2 of Acolyte doesn't mean that it's canceled, doesn't mean that we're not going to pick this story up at a later point, doesn't mean that at some point it might be reworked.
Right.
But I agree with you. Yeah, I mean, that's journalistic integrity has long been gone, because also no one calls them out. Like if part of the issue is that these small little independent, essentially blogs, it's not like they have a headquarters or anything like that.
Right.
These can be networks of writers who are basically contributing to a blog and calling it a website. And Disney is not really able to say we're revoking your credentials from D23 because they're probably not going to D23.
Yeah.
They're not invited. They don't get press. They don't get any of that stuff. This is just people reading stuff in the internet or having one friend, sources, sources
sources,
say. Yeah, sources say. To say that the show's canceled. So I agree with you. I think unfortunately I think the news is probably accurate, but I agree with you that the wording is certainly salacious for,
because that's what everyone just rolls with. They take the headline, and just to make one more point and then an analogy, and I'll shut the fuck up. I'm gonna cuss a lot on this one. There was never any indication that they had ordered more than one season, and it seems like this is the approach with the Disney Plus stuff.
Totally.
They'll make a season of something, see how it goes, and if it goes well, they do another one. It's not like there was a plan in place. As far as we knew, they weren't in any stage of production for season 2. There was just Leslie Headland saying, she had ideas for further seasons and more stories that she would love to tell. But that was it. There was nothing official, at least publicly, that was ever announced. So you can't cancel something that wasn't officially greenlit to begin with.
Mm-hmm. It's almost old terminology,
Right,
it's this transitional, like obviously streaming and the production companies, Disney Plus, for example, like it's all disrupted in the last however long since Netflix, but there's still this like old terminology floating out there. So I mean, it just, it wasn't renewed. I don't know, like what
no plans to renew it,
Mm-hmm.
like, and I don't doubt that there was some meeting where they were looking at these numbers that we're about to take a look at, and they said, or also looking at, viewer reaction, quote, fan reaction, and saying, okay, let's go ahead with this season, the next season for this series. Let's do this. We got the films coming up. Acolyte, we're not going to do that one.
Mm-hmm.
Just kind of just making decisions. I have no doubt that that's what happened. But to me, that doesn't equal canceled. Like if you said, like a lot of times now, older bands, Nick, you guys probably do this. A lot of bands will sign like a 1-record deal with a label. You're established, so you sign a 1-record deal and you get X amount of money. They're going to spend X amount on whatever. You do it. And then if you decide, if the label decides they want to do another one, you sign another 1-record deal. It used to be that you'd sign a multi-record deal and you get locked in for 3, 4, 5, 6, and then you could get dropped in the middle of that. Plans to make 6 albums now out the window. You've only done 2. We're done. But if you're going 1 record at a time and they don't pick up another one, you're not dropped. It's just like this alarmist shit just dumps gasoline on the dumpster fire of the internet, and I hate it so fucking much. I fucking hate it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and it's just no fun being us who like Star Wars, and it's getting increasingly harder to find like wins, because it seems like the bad guys are getting the wins because they get to frame this as, like someone somewhere, some neckbeard somewhere is like, I did it, I did it. I got it canceled.
Mm-hmm.
And ultimately, this is not a win for anyone. And I think Charles Beecham, our buddy, former Marvel Star Wars editor, posted something in his stories like, let me be clear, this is not a win for anyone. This sucks for every creative person that was involved in this project.
Mm-hmm.
Letting the neckbeards, quote, win actually is just a loss for everyone.
Mm-hmm.
It sucks.
Mm-hmm.
So,
and I think, and our friend Jason Chiodo posted something too from this standpoint, because what's going on in Hollywood is also insane right now. Like, they are actively trying to break up creative unions. They're actively trying to, they're moving productions to cities that probably don't have an infrastructure, but they're allowing tax cuts and tax breaks to make things cheaper overseas. Yep. This show in particular was filmed overseas. But the hard part about it is that you're looking at it and saying, my gripe with it, and I think all of us rationally know that there's some things in the show that we loved and that we didn't love, and that's actually true for nearly every season of everything Star Wars we've ever gotten. There's been stuff where we've been like, this is amazing. The same people that are saying that this show was terrible were the same people that were squawking that Andor was boring, right? So, so now we have like amazing, probably some of the most amazing lightsaber choreography since the Phantom Menace. And now we're going to use Andor as the gold, as the golden pony, as the benchmark. Yet when we show you these numbers from Nielsen ratings, Andor performs almost exactly the same as the Acolyte. Yep. So the truth is just because you like it doesn't mean that everyone else likes it. And just because you think something's dumb doesn't mean that everyone else thinks something's dumb. But at the end of the day, I think what happened here is that Disney is simply looking at a cost benefit analysis, costs, wins, profits, losses, all of this stuff, and going and to your point, Adam, this idea of going here's this idea for a show. Clearly what they set up, Leslie had ideas for season 2 and season 3. If I remember correctly, she had a plan out until season 3. And people are like, "Oh, why was she thinking about that?" That's how shows get pitched now.
Yeah.
That's
how writers write.
Exactly. This is James Cameron walking in and going alien and then adding an S at the end and making it a $sign so that Fox goes, okay, we're listening, right? I just saw Alien Romulus on Sunday, by the way. And talk about a thing that just returns the same thing over and over again. I mean, you're talking about another franchise where people can't decide if they love it or they hate it, but they want more of it. So it's difficult because for writers right now, for a show to get picked up, studios want multiple seasons so that they can tell a story, sell merch, claim it as a flagship. Leslie didn't do anything wrong in regards to telling a story that actually hung on great cliffhangers, alluded to a lot of a much bigger story happening. I mean, it had everything in there. It just, if the show took a risk of being disconnected from the same Skywalker universe that everyone claims they're sick of. Yet here we are. So let's talk about it.
I wouldn't say, you just said she didn't do anything wrong. I agree she didn't do anything wrong. But do you think that just think in like a creative sense, if the show is going to be, the show you wrote is going to be so different, like tone wise, I would have, this is all hindsight and whatever, but I'm just thinking like, I don't even want to say I would have. Do you think it would have been smarter to like not wait until the last episode to show Plagueis, to show Yoda? Like those are things that like could have sparked the fan base early on. Instead, that third episode, I didn't even feel like I was watching Star Wars. I could handle that, but it's like, do you think it should have been like spread out, or that it would have helped, I guess would be a better question, is if some of those things that we got at the last episode, which to me was the best episode, like could have some of those tricks been put into earlier episodes to spark excitement? Like, we're not the complainers, we're not the ones that are hating it. We could sit down and watch a show every week and understand that answers are coming, basically. But like, I wonder if
you're
I don't want to say safer, but like Star Wars fans are fickle,
You're saying the Anakin Skywalker opening his eyes at the end of Obi-Wan episode 1.
Yeah,
in the back to tank,
whatever it is,
And
I don't think you're wrong, but there is also so much of that in every film, every TV show. Like storytelling is shifted to that kind of thing where they do this big reveal of, oh my God, there's a dead body on the beach or something. And then the whole series is getting back to that because you have to hook somebody right away. And I know writers are sick of that. They're aware that they have to do it. And it's just like in songwriting. Like, throw the hook right at the beginning, a little tease before you get into the verse. Because if people, don't have something right away, they're going to be like, once I get into the thing, and they're all into the next. I fully get it. But then Andor breaks that and has this slow burn, and everyone who actually stuck it out praises it as the best Star Wars thing ever made.
Adults do.
Adults.
Right.
Yet it doesn't. It gets a negligible amount of views more than this, and the profit margin the difference is negligible as well. We'll get to this. I don't know. Like, it goes back to the you can't please everyone kind of thing. And the the minority voices are the loudest, and we're living in some version of idiocracy that really sucks.
Well, I think on a couple of things, the way, it's hard to say that the same formula would have worked like it would with the other shows, right? That Kenobi's alluding to Vader, they show him in the trailer, everyone knows that's happening, right? So already right there they have that card that's willing to be played. The only other thing that we didn't know about in Kenobi was that Leia was going to have as big of a role in the show. We didn't know that was going to happen, right? And people were mad about that too, right? This was the this was the internet's rage at the time. I think if you're going to lead with putting Yoda in there in the third episode, I think the bots, and it is real for people who are like, don't understand how the internet works. It costs $10 a day, probably overseas, actually factually overseas, to literally disrupt discourse. It's the cheapest bullet of war is internet discourse, right? Because it makes people just lose their mind.
Mm-hmm.
And so to go on to Amanda Listenberg's Instagram today and see private profiles being like, ha ha ha, I'm so glad your trash show got canceled. I'm like, this show, this target for this show, again, not just my own personal feelings about the show. I'm saying that this show gets targeted no matter what. They review bombed.
No matter what.
Exactly. This review bomb. So you could put Yoda in episode 3.
Before it was even out, people hated it.
100%. And they could have put Yoda in season 3. They could have put Plagueis in episode 3. They could have put Plagueis in episode 6, and people still would have been like, well, how come she gets to use Plagueis? How come Filoni doesn't get to use Plagueis?
Yeah.
Even though people are still calling for Filoni to be the president of Lucasfilm, which would take him off day-to-day creative projects. So once again, people who sell cell phones at Verizon have no idea how Hollywood works. You know what I mean? And I hate to be an asshole like that, but it's like, that's literally what I look at these people and I go, for the amount of shit that the internet has talked about Star Wars over the last, since 2020, I have seen 0 people make better fan fiction that has turned into anything. I've seen 0 contributions of people being like, this is what to do. So I don't know. That's where I'm at.
And they just don't, I guess, like, one thing, because, like, who I'm dating now, and I know she's obviously, she's in special effects and stuff, and like, you see how many people are working on a show, and when you look at the comments, which I saw all the time, of like, I can't believe this is $20 million a show, I can't believe this is $20 million. Like, what do you think? They're paying everyone on screen $5 million? Like, where do you think the money is going? Like, people don't understand production. You don't understand that besides the actual filming of the thing that you're seeing, how much goes into wardrobe and special effects and post-production and all this stuff. It's like, those people are making a living, so it's not $22 million an episode and Chimere's getting 10 million of it, like, it's not how it works.
Right.
Yeah. And all of those people really, really care about what they do and care about making great art.
Mm-hmm.
So when you shit on something, you're shitting on them. And writers,
but the thing
that gets me the most is when someone says lazy writing, like they know a fucking thing about screenwriting. Like they know a fucking thing about what's going through these writers' heads. Nothing lazy is happening. They might make decisions that aren't the best decision. Right. They might not be the best writer in the world.
Right.
They might also just be really good, and you just don't like what they made.
Right. Yeah. And I saw a meme today that was like, the Skinner meme from The Simpsons, and it was like, is the Acolyte was canceled because of a bad writing and lack of understanding of the franchise. Literally said this. It was like, no, it's the racists who are wrong. And I was like, this show tapped into the same thing that fans have been talking about: Old Republic lore, prequel lore, all of these things that the internet will also criticize someone on. yet we got kurtosis, we got Kyber bleeding, we got so many things that showed that that these writers, Leslie, all of these people are hardcore Star Wars fans. And so again, to Charles's point, this is a loss because Disney, and Nick and I have talked about this, and we all joke about this on the podcast, that like Disney is going to take the wrong message from this.
Yep.
And what they're going to take is that Star Wars should just stay in. We are going to explore every day of Luke Skywalker adjacent life. We're going to find out if 5 years later, like where was Luke on, after the second Death Star, where was he on year 7? Why don't we go follow him around and see if he's doing anything interesting, right?
All of a sudden it's the Batman problem. Like, you know what I mean?
Exactly. So I don't know. It's exhausting in a lot of ways, but
well, it's happened before. When did Iger on his first term be like, expect to slow down after Star Wars? Was it after Solo or something? So like that's what I'm more concerned about, is that's the wrong message. I don't know if that's exactly what you mean, but that's what I'm afraid of, is them being like, people don't like Star Wars shows. It's like, dude, that is not what the message should be. Like we don't like just, I don't know, just do better. Like I think that this was good, obviously, but like the real issue is the cost and viewership. So
right. Yeah.
fix those things. And it's not necessarily like, you can't just say there's so many things here. You can't just say like, oh, we have to do more stuff like Mando because it toes a line of things people know and it's new, or Ahsoka, which is like kind of in the middle of the pack here.
Right.
But like, then figure it out. Don't just be like, oh, we have to do this because this is what people want. It's like, figure out how to make it better. Figure out how to give people a hit that they didn't know they wanted. Like I've said that a million times on this show. It's like, don't feel like you have to spoon feed people just to save your job, which is a whole other thing. It's like none of these people want to get fired, so they're gonna start spoon feeding you. It's like, get creative in a way that feels creative, but also is a little safe, like then you have at least a ground floor to like work on to create from there, instead of scrambling, or worse, like Iger said 5 years ago or whatever. It's like, expect to slow down. It's like, come on, man, that's so cheap.
Right.
Yeah. Or just stay the course on some shit. Like this like fully shareholder based business model that all these giant corporations are in now, like in this late stage capitalism shit. There's no more taking a shot creatively and sticking to it. Like the whole Walt Disney approach is long gone now. The Steve Jobs approach is long gone, because it's about like quarter after quarter. If you don't see the return you need, and we're even about to talk about something very positive in that sense. It's still just like, how do we get in the black on this next quarter?
Toy Story 7.
Right.
Cars 19. It's like, that's what all of their D23 was.
Yeah.
It's like all sequels.
All right, well, let's move on. Let's talk about some numbers. I'll bring some things up here. Let's first say that Disney just reported in, was it last week or the week before? They had a shareholder meeting and they reported their first profitable quarter.
Right.
Which is great. Prices have been slowly going up, which is fine. It costs money to make shit, turns out. Right. This race to the bottom for the cheapest streaming service is long gone. We're on the way back up. And I'm glad to pay as much or more as I used to pay for cable to have direct access, on-demand access to all this stuff. I've been saying this forever. It applies to music, too. Spotify is going to get more expensive. Apple Music is going to get more expensive because their current business models suck and you can't pay artists with the way we've all just been acting.
Yeah, we're gonna get an extra. You and I are gonna get an extra like couple of fractions of a penny, and everyone's gonna pay $3 more a month.
Right.
And I've been doing my part, and I want to let you both know that I have been.
Send me $3 a month directly.
Okay,
Mike.
I can do that.
Yeah, and write each of the song names that you've been listening to on the bills.
Right. And then #save story of the year.
Yes.
#save Bayside. Yeah, let's look at numbers because I think it's interesting. So what we're getting into here, and I think this is from Nielsen data, which of course everyone can argue the efficacy of how they achieve these numbers, but regardless, I think this was in congruence with Apple's shareholder numbers, that they did not dispute these. And so I think this gives us a pretty interesting idea as to how the show's performed. Looking at the trend of these, the show, The Acolyte, is actually quite close to Andor. The issue for many people is that Andor was received with critical acclaim, nominated for a ton of Emmys, celebrated by, other industry people. So it was kind of their flagship for saying this is what Star Wars could be. Coming off, it was tied to probably one of their most well-received projects of the last 10 years with Rogue One. But it really just goes to show you that, again, we talked about this a little bit last week, Adam, that a branding issue right now is that Star Wars is tentpole characters like Darth Vader, Obi-Wan, and Mando and Grogu. Those are the characters. And you can look at these numbers and go, Mando season 3 just annihilated yet again. It went down from Mando season 2, but Ahsoka, shockingly, that again, the internet chooses what it wants to like. There were a lot of great moments in Ahsoka, but stumbled in some of the same ways that I thought that the Acolyte did. Didn't perform as well. I mean, Ahsoka we're now 2 years, 3 years after. When did Ahsoka come out? Last year, right?
Last year.
Yeah, it was like a year ago.
Okay, so we're 3 years past COVID. Boba Fett comes out 2021. People are watching less TV. But Ahsoka and Boba Fett did somewhat comparable numbers. But again, we're talking about millions of people here. Now, the issue
also
is...
millions, to clarify, I don't know if you said this. This is viewership for the finales, not the premieres, because that data looks a lot different.
Right, and then we're going to get into
the blue line is finales. The rest is average minutes watched. Is that what that is?
I believe so.
Yeah.
Average minutes per episode.
Okay, got it.
Right. So, yes. So Acolyte and Ahsoka both, I believe, lost viewership as the seasons went on. Yet Andor gained viewership. Mando also gained viewership and started to see a little bit of a drop off. So, pretty interesting numbers all in all. It seems it's hard to say. The streaming has been tricky, I think, for Disney. I think their strategy has been interesting in regards to what projects they're choosing to. And I think, truthfully, maybe looking at these numbers, this was an Iger push to go, let's get off streaming. Let's not make a 2-hour movie into 6 episodes, which is what I think has cursed a lot of these shows, is that the story was not long enough for the amount of episodes that they ordered. But certainly the viewership was just not strong here. And that is an issue when you're looking at going, if we're funding a project, if the numbers aren't there, what do we do? Right. And so this is that part where we have to break from our emotional side of going, did this show take risks? It absolutely did. Would a season 2 have been incredible to see the manipulation of Plagueis, to see the dynamic between is Palpatine eventually going to come into the picture? All of that has gone away because of these numbers, is what I have to look at. And what I'm choosing to look at, because it makes me too upset emotionally to think how the internet may have won on this. And it's not the internet that I like.
Yeah. Let's look at this here. This is a table with total runtime, average episode runtime, longest episode, shortest episode, number of episodes, budget, and then views per episode. And the interesting thing about this is, it lets us divide budget by the number of episodes and see what they were spending per episode on average.
Right.
And we see the biggest takeaway for me is the whole thing. We talked about this before we hit record, is Andor versus the Acolyte. Andor was about 21 million per episode. The Acolyte, 22.5 per episode. That's pretty negligible.
Mm-hmm.
When it comes to the views per episode, 9.9 million for Andor, 9.3 million for the Acolyte.
Mm-hmm.
I think your point about critical acclaim is the big difference.
Mm-hmm.
Really,
it's got to be, or we don't really know. Like Tony Gilroy has more clout than Leslie Henlin, So
Mm-hmm.
we knew before season 1 of Andor came out that it was 2 seasons. So I wonder if that's like negotiated, contracted, like who knows,
See, that's the thing. If Andor was not doing a season 2, that is a cancellation because it was always the plan.
Right. I think the idea, if I remember correctly, Andor was agreed upon that it was going to be a 2-season arc. I think we knew that. They were, if I remember, in the featurette, I think around after COVID, it was, we're building sets so that we can reuse them. It's, so, and I think we're going to see that, right? We're going to see Ferrix, we're going to see Coruscant, we're going to see Mon Mothma's apartment, all of these things, versus the Acolyte was building practical sets. Andor and the Acolyte both cost more because they built practical sets. Mando, Book of Boba Fett, even Kenobi, these shows were cheap because they never left Southern California.
Yeah.
Right. And so you have all this technology that then now the internet once again is now upset about it because the show seems too small. Now we're upset about not building physical sets, yet we're going to sit here and attack these shows for going, well, these overinflated budgets. Let me put this into perspective. Amazon Fallout, right, which was I think their most watched show of all time. Is that correct? I believe.
I don't know.
Regardless, it annihilated their viewership, and it was almost greenlit the day after the finale premiered. 153 million for a single season. Now, that puts that puts Fallout above Mando season 3, and it puts them about mid-tier between Mando and the Acolyte. But a lot of that was done. How many episodes was
Fallout? I think it was 8.
I think it was 8 too, right? So you're kind of looking here and go, the budget isn't there. But again, Amazon, which is a humongous company that's bigger than Disney in many other ways, they needed that show. Right? Like everyone was looking for Stranger Things. Disney has Star Wars. Disney has Marvel. To put it frankly, their blaster is bloated. They have these incredibly dynamic properties that Amazon didn't have before. The Boys is a show that is radically, I mean, it's one of their most watched shows, but it is radically in a corner of viewership that it is not a mainstream show as much as people watch it. Another thing that's interesting too, less than 20 million per episode, House of the Dragon from HBO, which HBO is a company that's constantly in financial concern. Warner Brothers, of course. But if you look at House of the Dragon for season 2, which had viewership that actually was around the Acolyte, and I can't remember where it is, but it House of the Dragon's viewership is nearly on par with the Acolyte, and that's for a service that isn't aimed at families. So I certainly would say the number between Max and Disney Plus is different, but these numbers aren't crazy compared to what is out there right now for what people are consuming. So that's another point.
My question right now, like, is anything doing what Friends did, which is like 25 million an episode. You know,
No.
like the issue is that there's more shows than ever. So you don't have to watch, and there's more streamers, there's more shows. No one is forced to watch Friends. You
Well,
know, like no one's forced. 25 million people aren't forced on a Thursday night to watch a show anymore.
But the thing is too, I talked to some of my students about this, right? Because look back at how things are different back then. Like Saturday morning cartoons for many people in America was the most accessible form of entertainment for kids in America. You had 3 channels, and they fought like the studios fought like hell to get that 9:30, 10 a.m. slot. Pokemon, Power Rangers, X-Men. They fought to get those spots, and it became a thing where almost every kid in America that had access to a TV knew what Saturday morning cartoons were, right? And so we have these things that held us up that became part of our normal lexicon. The fact that we could, say Autobots roll out, the fact that we could say, Pikachu or whatever, like most people understood that, but kids now are like, oh, did you like Stranger Things? And a kid would go, oh no, my parents didn't have Netflix. We were Amazon people. So they'd be like, well, did you watch, do you watch The Boys? No, I don't have that. I have HBO. Do you watch do you watch Game of Thrones? Yeah. No, we never had that. So it's like, we are separating. You're never going to get Friends again because people don't really watch cable the same way. It's
I just answered my own question with my own brain, guys. You know who gets all the views? Mr. Beast.
I was about to say the kid doesn't respond. No, we have Amazon. It's no. Like, is he on TikTok or YouTube?
Right.
No, The Boys is a television show.
Right.
With stories.
Disney should start their own YouTube. Figured it out, Iger.
Right.
Yeah, there's back in, pre-internet, there was a monoculture, where something like the Friends finale just completely consumed all of culture for that moment. Like a movie that you had to go see in theaters would just completely just canvas the globe. Like everyone's eyes were on the same thing at the same time.
Right.
And that isn't necessarily better. The way we have it now isn't necessarily better. It's just drastically different. And everyone's trying to figure out how to navigate this new model. And again, the race to the bottom with the pricing it's a lot of different people's fault. But we're just, everyone's, I said this about the music industry and movies and TV years ago when Ryan Phillips from my band and I were making this documentary about the music industry, because we all lived through the digital revolution. Some of us survived, some of us didn't, but everything became drastically different. And I said, the shit's really going to hit the fan when movies and TV have to deal with this. They did a lot of things to prevent it with piracy. There were also some technological hurdles that made it difficult inherently, but here we are. They've made the switch, but they did it so fast and did that race to the bottom shit with the pricing that the shit has now hit the fan fully.
Mm-hmm. Because it was also the race to the bottom that you're talking about was also parallel to we have the most viewers. That's why it has to be cheap. Like we have the most signed. Yeah, like not the most viewers, but the most subscribers. Sorry, that's the right word I'm looking for.
Right.
Just like, hello, idiots. Like, oh, you're $6.99, so you have however many. Like, now we made no money. We have the most we have the most subscribers, but we made no money because we made it cheap. Now we have to double the price over the next 3 years. Like, are you stupid?
Right.
Hello, are you stupid?
But that's hello, McFly. But that's the issue too, though, is that the numbers. It goes into Adam's point about late stage capitalism, that the numbers are only there to make the shareholders feel like they're making money. That's what it is, right? So it's not so much about creative, it's not so much about creative integrity or looking at something going, oh, the shareholders like this project. The shareholders like the project if it makes money. The shareholders like investing in Netflix when they tell them that Stranger Things is the most viewed show on streaming in history. They like that, right? They like knowing that, there's going to be there's going to be a park integration, and your shares are going to soar because we are expanding into 16 different countries, and we're going to do all this stuff, right? So that's really what it comes down to. And again, Disney is constantly looking to cut costs in every way. We all know that. We're going to close the Starcruiser, critically acclaimed experience that was critical from a couple people who were very loud about it. But at the end of the day, the same thing. They said that it costs too much money to operate, and they don't care about the creative part of it. And again, it's putting it into the idea that whatever happened here, it just didn't get viewers. Yeah. And that is the frustrating part about it, is that it just didn't get viewers, and it did not get met with critical acclaim. It didn't have, in Disney's eyes, redeeming qualities to pursue moving forward with it. And I don't know, again, this is a tragedy for a lot of things, but mainly where I see someone taking a risk outside of modern Star Wars.
Yeah.
That if it does not tie in somehow, I mean, they showed freaking Yoda at the end, for God's sakes. There's just something about it where I go, for people who, we're talking about representation in Star Wars. This was a first show that did a lot of things different, that of course a large...
come on, space lesbians. What the hell?
Right. Overly critical, overly outspoken group of people on the internet are going to assume that was the reason why. But it's amazing to me that people are like, I can't believe this show, yet they watched every week to complain about it. So I'm like, actually, you contributed to that, and I appreciate that. But at the end of the day, it's like, I think it more so is Star Wars has a different problem that is getting, we are so far along in the Star Wars timeline that it is overwhelming for people to get into. And that's why they see names that have broken through our American lexicon: Boba Fett, Darth Vader, Obi-Wan Kenobi. These are prequel kids. These are all of these people that I think, Acolyte took a risk, and unfortunately it didn't pay off for the viewership.
Yeah, but nothing about what you just said is going to get simpler.
It's not. It's really not.
If the problem with the sort of barrier to entry because of the deep canon and all this content is a problem, there's no way to fix that. If you want to keep making things and keep making money as a studio, you can do more Luke Skywalker, but still somebody who's coming in fresh is going to say, well, wait a minute. So like, what all is Luke Skywalker? So where do I start? Like, I don't know. That's a lot. I don't know. Maybe I'll see it when it's on Disney and not go to the theater, make a big ass movie. Right.
Yeah,
or they do the show and they're like, how many episodes is it? What do I have to watch first?
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely part of it. Like, I remember pretty recently in June, I was home, and one of my brother-in-law's friends was just like, hey, normal guy who likes the original trilogy, probably sort of likes everything else. I think Acolyte was it out by then? By like, oh no, it was June. It was June. It wasn't out by then, was it?
Yeah, it was like June 3rd or something like that.
Okay, either way. He was like, what's up with this Acolyte show? I'm not hearing good things. It's just like, that's what normal people hear, like they're the next couple of tiers of fandoms of fans, like, put more time into things. But the normal people, which I hate to say it, vast majority of people are normal people. Yeah. They'll hear that it's bad and not give it a shot. Like, that's just how it is. So I don't know. I mean, I wish that there was some sort of, I think that taking risks will lead to potentially bigger rewards. I don't think playing it safe and being the Walmart of Star Wars is the way to go. I don't think it's Luke Skywalker's, what did Luke Skywalker do this week? Like, I don't think that's that's the answer. You know, we'll see like Boba Fett numbers if we do that, you know.
Right.
But you want another Grogu, you have to literally take risks and see what people react to. And I wish that there was a better creative safety net where it's like, hey, you get 2 seasons, your budget total is $200 million, spend it how you want. If you do 8 episodes and it costs you $120 million and that's your first season, you get $80 million, whether that means you're doing 8 more episodes or 4 episodes. Wrap up the story in 4 episodes, you know, like that. I wish there was a creative safety net in general, because like the small amount of shows that I liked that got canceled before the finale, like a resolution, like those stick with me forever, you know. Like I hate that's the worst feeling, and I always wish that for a creator, director, whoever really it is, I wish that there was a creative safety net when it came to these things.
What's unfortunate is that all of this shit is so complicated on an accounting level, especially when you factor in how all of this affects share price, and you know, because it's all emotionally motivated. The stock market is entirely emotionally motivated. Not entirely. There are obviously like economic forces that are in play, but it's a goddamn casino for all intents and purposes.
It's Canto Bite.
So there's accounting stuff that is way above our pay grade.
Sure.
And there are things where, like Nick, you said, like, you know, if it's going to be 4 episodes, the unfortunate part is no matter what, you have to spend a bunch of money on marketing. And like I remember having conversations like this with label people back in the day and management. Like, why can't we just, you know, do a single here, a single there, maybe do a 4-song EP, not always do an album? And back in the day, it was, well, it's not worth the marketing budget to release a product that sells for $6.99 instead of $12.99. That's why you have to do a full album. And it's got to still be a similar thing here, even with TV. Even though they can advertise directly on the main page of the app, and it, you know, everything's more integrated, there's still a lot of marketing on social media, on you know, regular terrestrial TV, and all this kind of stuff. So I'm sure that's part of it. But there is some business model that these companies are going to settle into, where you can drop a 4-episode limited thing and people go ape shit over it, and it kills.
Well, that's, I mean, but you're looking at exactly that problem. Is that originally the Obi-Wan series was supposed to be a miniseries. It was supposed to be 4 episodes, and Bob Chapek at the time was like, no, we want to get them for 6 episodes, keep them as a subscriber, right? Let's get through the month, because then when the month turns over, they have to stay subscribed to continue watching the show. And they stretched the show out for too long, right? Because it wasn't written that way. And it's the same, and you could hear about these things, but what I look at from this other side of things is going, 1 episode of The Acolyte costs more than the entire Clone Wars season to make, right? So is the future in animation, but then they don't support animation in the same way too, because people don't, the average person is not watching animation. I would love to see the numbers of Bad Batch, right? Which is a, you know, continuation of a story that most people haven't seen either in that regard. So it is frustrating in a lot of ways, because I actually blame a lot of marketing. I think Star Wars marketing for Disney is so odd to me. It's like, Nick has always talked about this, and I've always agreed with him, that he's like, it's a ghost town for 4 months, and then suddenly they're like, here's the teaser trailer. Then a week later, they're like, here's the real trailer. And then they're like, subscribe now, here's the show. And then they don't talk, they do a recap of it during the show, and then they never talk about it again. I'm like, why did you bring Manny Jacinto out to D23 to get people like hyped on being able to hang out with this guy, and then be like, oh yeah, also show's canceled?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I'm just like, what is going on here with this? Like, how you're going to, you have like,
well, dude, you know what that feels like? Exactly like is Starcruiser. Like, it's a meeting of the top people, in closed door meeting, and it's like, nope, done with that. Done with that. Done with that.
But I look at
everyone.
I look at what used to work, and again, I don't know if this is true, but it's like, okay, the Black Series toys for the Acolyte are just now hitting stores.
Yeah.
Right? I'm like the Stranger Black Series helmet, which like is so sick, Chimere's helmet. It doesn't come out until Q4 or Q3 next year.
Yeah.
I'm just like, what is going on? Like, this stuff is designed to increase your hype for this. This is why the toys used to come out before the movie was, so you're like looking at this character being like, damn, this character looks sick, right? And now we're like, Hasbro's like, oh yeah, we'll get around to it. We'll
I
get
haven't been collecting much lately, but it's a real. I still, when I'm in Target, walk down the aisle, and it might be at an all-time low right now. There's just 6 pegs with nothing on it. Maybe a Lando Return of the Jedi that's been there for 3 years probably, but it's an absolute ghost town. And I mean, not that makes them a lot of money, but in a sense, marketing wise, I mean, even if you go to Disney parks, I've been weaning off of buying Star Wars stuff, not because I want to, but because it's just, well, I don't want any of it, like it's not inspiring. When you go to Disney parks and I walk around Star Trader or something, I'm like, I don't know who this is for. Like, I don't know who's buying this stuff. And not for nothing, every time I walk into Star Trader, it's more Disney parks merch, more and more the percentage. It used to be probably 90% Star Wars stuff. It's probably like maybe 50% Star Wars at this point. It's like Halloween Disney stuff.
Right.
Like, so they're, I don't know. I can only speculate so far as to what's going on with it, but I started to feel like recently. Yeah. Well, I started, and by recently, I mean the last 2 years, started to feel like it took them a decade to realize what they had. And like the programming started to level out, and now I'm just confused again.
Sure.
Dude, what's weird though is it's not like Disney doesn't know how to do this with films, and it's not like they don't know how to do it with Star Wars, because they killed it on The Force Awakens. Granted, that was the first big film, and it's easier, but I mean, I worked at Apple at the time, and it was so hard for me to keep that non-spoiler pack, because merch was everywhere for months leading up.
Right.
I mean, I had to sell people the BB-8 and BB-9E toys. You know what I mean? Like, well, so I guess for both films, but like, it just, it's not like they don't know what they're doing, but also, what are they doing?
But that's what that's what I'm looking at. It's just, I have to look at going, is Star Wars just, Grogu and Mando now at this point?
And that's still 2 years away,
right? Like, of what they seemingly want to invest in. But I'm sitting here being like, okay, you know what would get me hyped at this point? Now that I know that the show is canceled, for Force Fridays or whatever that starts happening in September, I'm like, I want a pack of Skeleton Crew kids in Black Series. I want it's like, at this point, the only consistent product that's out there that's actually getting people hyped for what comes out is freaking Lego.
Yeah.
Like, the Onyx Cinder is coming out in the next couple of weeks, and I'm kind of sitting here being like, okay, so the main source of information of Skeleton Crew is from a Lego? I'm like, what is going on here? Like, we don't even know the kids' names yet. They haven't released profiles on them yet. They're not responding to anything about the cancellation. They're not officially saying it. But I'm sitting here being like, guys, like, what is your PR team doing when this stuff happens? Like, they're just going to sit there and they're like, maybe people will forget about it.
Yeah. I mean, the toy thing, which I don't want to, like, I know toy collecting isn't going to, like, save Star Wars, but just merchandising in general, which is, like, almost synonymous with Star Wars.
Yeah.
Like, there needs to be a good balance of, we don't want to know spoilers because something's getting made overseas 2 years before the show comes out. We don't want to know that. But I could think far back enough of Black Series by Hasbro putting out Rey from Rise of Skywalker, Kylo with Rise of Skywalker before the movie came out. Like, you knew that these things were coming, and those came out a couple of months before. Like, there needs to be a good balance of don't spoil things, but also there should be t-shirts, toys, like everyone goes to Target and Walmart, and it's a Star Wars ghost town. Right. Star Wars ghost town, anywhere you like, everywhere. They make a lot of junk, I'll tell you that much. You know, like they make, if you want to go into, it's like back to school right now, if you want a Grogu pencil set with a pencil sharpener, you got it. You know, like they make a lot of junk, but like, that's not saving any, you know, it's not saving any Star Wars property at this point.
Right. But at this point too, it's like, are we even concerned about spoilers? And I mean this, like, I mean this in some regard of like the excitement. I know that it's like the same thing. This is not a topic of discussion today, but like the Tamura Morrison thing, like that, another clickbait article.
Yes.
That got taken completely out of context. I'm like, you mean to tell me that this guy who plays one of the most notorious characters in all of film history and is also multiple voices, he's like, Moana 2 is coming out, he's the chief of Matanu, right? I'm like, you think that he's gonna come out at a regional convention and go, yeah, no, Disney, like they don't want me, they don't want Boba Fett, they don't like Boba Fett, they think Boba Fett sucks? Because that's basically what the clickbait insinuated, was that like, oh yeah, Disney, they don't know what to do with Boba Fett. I'm like, he never said that. He literally just didn't answer the question if he was going to be in the Mandalorian movie, which I'm sitting here being like,
well, he
yeah,
said,
sure.
I haven't heard from them, which is the same thing Hayden said, but he has the worst poker face ever, so we knew it.
He has an NDA. He's not.
Yeah,
he didn't.
That's the
he
thing.
Didn't say,
Liam Neeson said the same thing. Like, I haven't heard from. Yeah,
like,
see,
I
haven't
made
gotten the call.
I know. I made the joke to you though about being like, okay, so Jimmy Kimmel goes on and goes, oh, Tobey Maguire, what have you been up to since Spider-Man? I heard there's another Spider-Man coming out. What is he supposed to look over at the audience? Go, yeah, I'm going to be in it. It's going to be awesome. Right. Like, what are you talking about? Like, what is this? So I don't know. I just get, again, it's like, I wonder how people are so confident when they talk about stuff they know nothing about. It blows my mind. I guess.
We're going to have the best everything. You know it. Many people are saying that we're the best, you know?
Here we go. Here we go.
I'm hearing,
yeah. Okay, here we go. We're gonna get canceled. Okay. So, anyways, all in all, I think what it comes down to is there's a lot of disappointment for people who are asking Star Wars to take risks, and I think that's really what it comes down to. And to, unfortunately, not quell the disappointment, because I think that's always going to be there, especially for projects that a dedicated amount of people love. Starcruiser, and hopefully the series that are still in production or coming out don't take the wrong message from this. But at the end of the day, it comes down to numbers and it comes down to cost. And unless they're planning on possibly reworking the Acolyte and saying, how could we film it at in the volume? How could we film it Southern California to reduce some of those costs? Entirely possible. But as of right now, that seems to be it. And I think it's okay for us to look at the viewership.
I have an anecdote. It came into my brain like 5 minutes ago, but we were chatting. So I was at D23, whatever it was, 2 weeks ago. And when I text you guys that I was standing 5 feet away from Doug Chang for like a while, I also had a group of extremely unfun people walk by me. And one of them was Bob Iger. So it was Bob Iger surrounded by other executives. And I'm like, this whole thing, this whole convention center is full of joy and people like just having fun, cosplaying, interactive, everything. And then you literally almost see Darth Vader walk by. That's the literal vibe that it was. Like, these people only care about, like, somehow their commodity is our joy, but it doesn't seem like it makes them happy. Like, for them to walk through that floor and suck out the energy, the like group of like, just say it was like 10 people. Also, Bob Iger's taller than you think. It's really weird. He doesn't give off tall guy energy. Yeah, that was a real weird thing that he just walked by with a bunch of executives. And I was like, oh God, they're all just wear a t-shirt, dude. You know, like it was just like everyone was in a suit. I'm like, who are the narcs? Jesus.
Right.
Yeah, not a good look to wear the thing that is the name you're called, and not called that in a loving way. That's weird. All right, let's wrap up. I'm really tired and I gotta pee.
Mm-hmm.
Buy Mosh Isley tickets and attend Mosh Isley.
Woo!
What's next week?
Just 9
next
days
week
in Atlanta.
Wow.
It is Dragon Con weekend. We are going to have the best party in the galaxy at the Masquerade in the ATL. Tickets are on sale at moshisley.com. It's Mandalorian themed, so bring your best bucket. Bring your best car. Your best car.
If you want to help us, even if you're not going and you've been to a previous Mosh Isley, just do a little post for us so we can repost it. Just help us with our social media engagement.
Tag
if you have
your
a picture, tag
memory.
us,
Yep.
post, help us out.
Yeah.
Good times.
Yeah, be awesome. Are we doing a chat pack? Are we doing
We are.
Are we doing
I have a good one.
About that.
This the category is the Force. The question is, some Jedi can sense the history of an object when they touch it. If you had this ability, what item would you want to pick up and learn about? That'll be in the bonus segment for patrons. If you want to hear that, patreon.com/ThinkTheMakerPod is the place. Patrons make this thing possible. No bullshit. It's true.
It is true.
So thank you to patrons. And patrons have been just super, super chatting it up in Discord. There were a handful of things that I wanted to shout out, but we were just our brains were on fire over here, so I'm sorry I didn't. But we love you and we appreciate you, and there's some really good conversation going on and some great gifts, as is tradition.
As is tradition, and they are there. So
everyone, thanks again for watching, for listening, for enjoying the podcast. See you next week, and until then, may the Force be with you. If you enjoy Thank the Maker, you can support us by following and leaving a review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen. Or you can support us directly at patreon.com/ThankTheMakerPod, where you can get access to our Discord server, exclusive content, exclusive merch, our recording live stream, and more. Our patrons quite literally make Thank the Maker possible.